Welcome to Love Lies Chronicles.
I'd love to know what you think. Every comment helps me make the next story better. Subscribe to stay tuned. The smell of mesquite smoke hung thick in the Austin heat as I flipped another burger on the grill. 95 degrees and not a cloud in sight. Perfect weather for our 4th annual Memorial Day barbecue. Assuming perfect meant sweating through your shirt by 2 in the afternoon. I'd been standing at this grill for 3 hours, watching neighbors drift through our backyard in Zilker. The Donnellys brought their famous potato salad. Kyle Hampton showed up with a case of local craft beer. Angela Torres from across the street arrived with her daughter and a tray of brownies. Melissa was holding court on the patio, wine glass in hand, laughing too loud at something Preston Walsh said. Preston and his wife Bethany were the kind of people Melissa gravitated toward lately. Young, ambitious, always talking about their latest venture or promotion. "Owen, this brisket is incredible," Frank Donnelly said, loading up his plate. "You've got to tell me your secret." Before I could answer, Melissa's voice carried across the yard. "Well, it's not like he has hobbies that take up his time." Frank's smile faltered. I forced a laugh and changed the subject. "Just low and slow, Frank. That's the only secret." Patricia Donnelly touched her husband's arm, and they moved toward the drinks table. I watched them go, then returned to the grill. This was the pattern now. Melissa made a comment. People got uncomfortable. I smoothed it over. "Any vacation plans this summer?" Kyle asked, grabbing a burger. "We were thinking about," I started. "Owen prefers to save money instead of actually living," Melissa called out. She was on her 3rd glass of wine. Maybe her 4th. The afternoon sun caught the rim of her glass as she gestured, and I noticed Brian Keller watching from his seat at the patio table. Brian lived 3 houses down. Divorce attorney. Recently separated from his own wife. He caught my eye and gave a small shake of his head. Sympathetic. Understanding. I flipped another burger and said nothing. The afternoon wore on. More neighbors arrived. The ice chest needed refilling. Someone's kid skinned his knee and I grabbed the first aid kit. Melissa's voice got progressively louder, her gestures more animated. She was performing now, the way she always did after a few drinks. By 4 o'clock, maybe 30 people were scattered across our yard. The conversation near the grill had turned to marriage, the way it always does at these things. Someone made a joke about training your spouse. Everyone laughed. Melissa's laugh was loudest. Then she said it. Honestly, her voice cut through every other conversation in the yard. "Owen's like a roommate who occasionally earns his keep. We're basically strangers who share a mortgage and sometimes pass each other in the hallway." The spatula stopped halfway to the grill. Every conversation died. I could feel 30 pairs of eyes shifting between me and Melissa. Someone's phone music suddenly became very loud in the silence. I turned around slowly. Melissa was still smiling, wine-flushed and confident. She hadn't realized yet what she'd done. Hadn't noticed that everyone had stopped talking. I looked at the faces around me. Preston and Bethany staring at their plates. The Donnellys exchanging glances. Angela Torres's expression somewhere between sympathy and anger. Kyle Hampton examining his beer bottle like it held the secrets of the universe. 7 years. 7 years of comments and jokes and little cuts. But she'd never said it in front of witnesses before. I set down the spatula. "Fair assessment," I said. My voice came out calmer than I felt. "Which is why I'm moving out this weekend. Roommates don't need marriage certificates." The silence somehow got deeper. Melissa's smile froze on her face. Someone dropped a paper plate. Brian Keller stood up from the patio table. He walked over, pulled a business card from his wallet, and handed it to me. "Call me Monday morning," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "First consultation is on the house for neighbors." He turned to Melissa. "You might want to get your own attorney. This kind of public statement about the marriage won't look good in proceedings." Melissa's face cycled through confusion, then shock, then something close to panic. Her wine glass tilted in her hand, a few drops spilling onto the concrete. "What? No. It was a joke." She reached for my arm. I stepped back. Everyone knows I was kidding around. She looked desperately at the crowd. Not a single person met her eyes. "The burgers are done," I said. "Someone else can serve them." I looked at Brian. "I'll call Tuesday. Monday I'll be packing." I walked toward the house. Behind me, I could hear Melissa's voice rising, trying to explain, trying to walk it back. But some things, once said in front of 30 witnesses, can't be unsaid. Inside the house, I pulled out my phone and called my friend Rodney. Hey, you still have that spare room? Through the kitchen window, I watched the last neighbors collecting their things. Melissa stood alone by the grill, surrounded by abandoned plates and half-empty cups. For the first time since we'd gotten married, I felt like I could breathe. The last neighbor didn't leave until almost 6. I stayed inside, packing a suitcase. Through the window, I could see Melissa pacing the backyard, phone pressed to her ear, probably calling her sister. Or her mother. Someone who would tell her this was all a misunderstanding. Brian Keller was the last to go. I watched him approach Melissa on the patio. Even from inside, I could see her body language, defensive, arms crossed. Brian's posture was relaxed, professional. After a few minutes, he walked away. Melissa stood there alone for a long time. When she finally came inside, I was in the bedroom, folding shirts. "We need to talk," she said. "We've talked enough. You can't seriously be moving out over one comment." I placed another shirt in the suitcase. "I'm not moving out over one comment. I'm moving out over 7 years of comments." "That's not fair." I looked at her, really looked at her. "When's the last time you introduced me to someone without apologizing for me?" "I don't." "Last month. Your college friend. You said, 'This is Owen. He's comfortable with where he is in life.' The way you emphasized comfortable made it sound like a disease." She opened her mouth, closed it again. "How many times have you made jokes about my ambition?" I asked. "I don't know, I wasn't." 47 times in the last 6 months. I started keeping track in February. Her face went pale. "You kept track." When someone repeatedly questions your worth, you start documenting it. Turns out I was right too. She grabbed the doorframe. "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" I zipped the suitcase. "Tell me something. Do you even like me anymore?" The question hung there. She struggled to answer. "When was the last time you laughed at something I said because it was actually funny, not because you were mocking me?" Silence. "Can you name 3 things you admire about me that have nothing to do with what I provide financially?" More silence. "That's what I thought." I picked up the suitcase. "I'm staying at Rodney's tonight. I'll get the rest tomorrow." "This is your house too. I should leave if anyone does." I stopped at the bedroom door. "You're right. It is my house. My name, my down payment, my mortgage payments. So actually, maybe you should pack instead." I saw the calculation in her eyes. The realization that she didn't have anywhere near as much power as she thought. I left her standing there and walked out to my truck. Sunday morning, Melissa tried calling me 6 times. I didn't answer. Around noon, text messages started arriving. "We need to talk about this." "You're overreacting." I was drunk. You know I say things I don't mean when I drink. "Please just come home so we can work this out." I was sitting in Rodney's living room when Brian Keller called. "Hey, Owen. Just wanted to check in. How are you holding up?" "Better than expected, honestly." "Good. Listen, I brought over the initial consultation forms this morning." Melissa wasn't exactly receptive. I bet she wasn't. She seems to think this will all blow over. That you'll come back and things will go back to normal. There is no normal. There never was. I was just too busy keeping the peace to notice. Brian was quiet for a moment. "I've been practicing family law for 18 years. I've seen hundreds of marriages end. What she said yesterday, that's not venting. That's contempt. And contempt kills marriages faster than infidelity." "I know. Call me Tuesday. We'll start the paperwork." After he hung up, Rodney came into the room with 2 beers. "You doing okay?" "Yeah. About damn time, man. Been watching her tear you down for years." We sat there in silence, drinking beer, watching a basketball game neither of us cared about. Monday afternoon, Melissa texted me. "I'm making lunch. Your favorite. Come home so we can talk." Against my better judgment, I went. The house smelled like garlic and herbs. Melissa had gone all out. The table was set with our good dishes. Candles. Wine. She'd even changed clothes and fixed her makeup. "I made your favorite," she said as I walked in. I sat down but didn't touch the food. "What do you want, Melissa? I spent all night thinking about what you said. And, you're right. I haven't been appreciating you." "Go on." She pulled out a notebook. I made a list. Of course she did. "You work hard," she read. "You're reliable. You take care of the house. You never miss a mortgage payment. You help the neighbors. You're always there when I need something fixed." "Stop." She looked up from the notebook. "Everything on that list is what I do, not who I am. You're listing my functions, like I'm an appliance. That's not. Tell me something about my personality that you love." A quality I have that has nothing to do with what I provide or do for you. She stared at the notebook. The silence stretched on. Can you describe my sense of humor? You're funny sometimes. What book am I currently reading? I don't. You're always reading something. What's my favorite movie? The one I've watched 20 times? She said nothing. You don't know me at all. And worse, you don't care to know me. The doorbell rang. Melissa's expression shifted to annoyance. I told you this wasn't a good time for. Brian Keller stood on the porch with a folder of papers. Brought the initial consultation forms, he said. Figured you'd want to get started. This isn't a good time, Melissa said. Actually, it's the perfect time. Better to have all parties present for disclosure. He walked past her into the living room, setting the folder on the coffee table. Owen, you'll need to list all marital assets. The house, cars, accounts. Stop, Melissa said. We're working things out. Brian looked at her with professional detachment. Are you? Because from where I stand, this looks like damage control. You're only hearing his side. I heard your side. Saturday, in front of 30 witnesses. You called your marriage a roommate situation and said you were strangers sharing a mortgage. I was venting. In family law, we call that establishing contempt. Makes the separation pretty straightforward, actually. I picked up the folder. Thanks, Brian. I'll look these over tonight. Melissa turned to me, desperate now. You're really doing this? I am. Over one comment at a barbecue. I stood up. No. Over 7 years of comments. The barbecue was just the first time you said it where everyone could witness it. I left her sitting there with her untouched lunch and her notebook full of functions I performed. Tuesday morning at work, I tried to focus on normal tasks. Emails. Reports. The quarterly review coming up in August. But my phone kept buzzing with messages from Melissa's friends. Jennifer, one of her book club members, cornered me in the break room around 10. Owen, I heard about the weekend. That's so sad. I poured coffee and said nothing. Melissa's devastated. She called me crying last night. Said you won't even talk to her. There's nothing to talk about. But every marriage has rough patches. Don't you think you're being a little harsh? Walking out over something she said when she was drinking? I turned to face her. Did she tell you what she said? Jennifer shifted her weight. Well, something about roommates, but she told 30 people that I was like a roommate who occasionally earns his keep. That we were strangers who share a mortgage. In front of our entire neighborhood. Does that sound like a rough patch to you? Her mouth opened slightly. Clearly Melissa's version had been edited. I didn't realize it was that specific. It was. And it wasn't the wine talking. It was 7 years of thinking it, finally said out loud. I walked past her back to my desk. 10 minutes later, my supervisor Amy stopped by. Everything okay? Jennifer mentioned you seemed upset. Personal stuff. Won't affect my work. Amy sat on the edge of my desk. I've known you for 8 years, Owen. You're one of the steadiest people here. If you say it won't affect your work, I believe you. But if you need a few days, take them. I appreciate that. I'm good. She nodded and left. But the interruptions continued. By lunch, 3 more people had approached me with some version of I heard about your separation or hope you're doing okay. News traveled fast. Around 2, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Owen Fletcher? Yes. This is Diane Mitchell. I'm an attorney. Your wife asked me to call you. Of course she did. She's interested in pursuing mediation rather than formal divorce proceedings. She thinks with some counseling and time. Tell Melissa I already have an attorney. Brian Keller. She can contact him directly. Mr. Fletcher, mediation is often less contentious and more cost-effective. I'm sure it is. But I'm not interested in mediation or counseling or time. I'm interested in ending a marriage that should have ended years ago. I understand emotions are running high. No, emotions aren't running high. I'm completely calm. I've made a rational decision based on 7 years of evidence. Tell Melissa to stop calling my workplace and to contact Brian Keller if she has questions about the divorce. I hung up. My coworker Tom appeared at my cubicle. You okay, man? You look tense. Wife hired a lawyer to call me at work. Ouch. Going through it, huh? Going through it implies we're in the middle. We're at the end. She just hasn't accepted it yet. Tom leaned against the cubicle wall. My brother went through a divorce last year. Took him 6 months of back and forth before his ex finally signed the papers. She kept thinking he'd change his mind. Did he? Nope. Married someone else 3 months after it finalized. Sometimes people just know when it's done. I know. Good for you, man. Life's too short to spend it with someone who doesn't appreciate you. The rest of the day passed in relative peace. I finished the quarterly projections, responded to emails, attended a meeting about the new software rollout. Normal work things. It felt good to focus on something other than my imploding marriage. At 5, I packed up my things. As I walked to the parking lot, I saw Melissa's car parked 3 spaces from mine. She got out as I approached. We need to talk. No, we don't. And you can't just show up at my workplace. You won't answer my calls. What else am I supposed to do? Accept that it's over. I talked to a lawyer today. She said we could do mediation. It's less expensive, less hostile. I'm not interested. Why are you being so stubborn about this? I unlocked my truck. I'm not being stubborn. I'm being decisive. There's a difference. What about our vows? For better or worse? This is the worst. And I've had enough of it. She grabbed my arm. I pulled away. Don't, I said. We're not doing this here. Then where? When? You won't talk to me at home, won't answer my calls. Because there's nothing left to say. You made your feelings clear on Saturday. I made mine clear when I walked out. Everything else is just details for the lawyers. You're really going to throw away 9 years. You threw them away when you called me a roommate in front of everyone we know. I'm just making it official. I got in my truck and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw her standing there in the parking lot, phone already to her ear, probably calling the lawyer back, or her mother, or one of her friends who would tell her I was being unreasonable. I didn't care anymore. I was done explaining, done justifying, done defending my decision to people who would never understand because they'd never lived it. That evening, I called Brian from Rodney's apartment. We spent an hour going over paperwork, asset division, timeline, next steps. This should be relatively clean, Brian said. No kids, house is in your name, you've been the primary income. She'll probably push for spousal support, but given the duration of marriage and her earning capacity, I doubt she'll get much. Whatever. I just want it done. One more thing, Brian said. Happened to run into Angela Torres yesterday. She asked about you. Angela, the single mom from across the street. Apparently, she's had a thing for you for years. Said Melissa always treated her like she didn't exist. I hadn't thought about Angela beyond neighborly friendliness. But now that Brian mentioned it, she had always been kind. Always remembered my name, asked about my day. Never made me feel like I was less than. Just thought you should know, Brian said. Once this is finalized, you might want to ask her to coffee. Wednesday, Melissa called from an unknown number. I answered without thinking. I applied for 3 jobs today, she said. You said I don't contribute, so I'm fixing it. You should get a job. But not because of me. Not anymore. What does that mean? It means I'm signing the papers Brian prepared. You can't be serious. Dead serious. We've been together 9 years. Doesn't that mean anything? I looked out Rodney's window at the street below. It means I wasted 7 of them trying to be enough for someone who'll never be satisfied. She started crying. Please, just give me another chance. I've given you 47 chances in 6 months. That's not counting the hundreds before I started keeping track. That's not fair. Neither is calling your husband a roommate in front of the entire neighborhood. I hung up. Wednesday afternoon, I went to the grocery store near Rodney's apartment. I was in the produce section, comparing prices on bell peppers, when I heard a familiar voice. Owen. Melissa's mother, Sharon, stood 3 feet away with a shopping cart. Her husband Richard was examining tomatoes behind her. Hello, Sharon. We heard about what happened. Melissa called us on Sunday. She's beside herself. I put the peppers in my basket and started to move past her. Don't you think you're overreacting? She made one comment after having too much wine. Every couple fights. Richard joined us, a bag of tomatoes in hand. Owen, good to see you. Richard. Sharon, maybe this isn't the place. No, I want to understand. She moved her cart to block the aisle. You're throwing away your marriage over something she said at a party? She didn't just say something. She publicly declared that I was essentially a tenant in my own life, that our marriage was nothing more than a real estate arrangement. She was venting. Women do that. We complain about our husbands. It doesn't mean we want divorces. There's a difference between venting to friends and humiliating your spouse in front of 30 witnesses. Richard touched his wife's arm. Sharon. She ignored him. Melissa loves you. She's terrified of losing you. Can't you at least try counseling? I spent 7 years trying to be enough. I'm done trying. So you're just giving up? No. I'm finally respecting myself enough to leave a situation where I'm not valued. Not valued? She married you. She built a life with you. She built a life around what I could provide, not who I am. There's a difference. Sharon's face flushed. Well, maybe if you had more ambition, more drive. And there it was. The source of Melissa's attitude, clear as day. There it is, I said quietly. Now I understand where she learned it. Learned what? That a person's worth is measured by their ambition, their drive, their accomplishments, not their character or kindness or reliability. That's not what It's exactly what you meant. And it's exactly what Melissa believes. Which is why this marriage was never going to work. She wants someone impressive. I'm just someone decent. Those aren't the same thing. Richard finally spoke up. He's right, Sharon. She turned to him, shocked. He is, Richard continued. We raised Melissa to value achievement over character. To see marriage as a partnership of resumes, not people. That's on us. Richard. No, Sharon. Look at us. How many times have you introduced me to your friends by my job title first? How many times have you been disappointed when I didn't make partner, didn't buy the bigger house, didn't climb higher? She said nothing. Richard looked at me. I'm sorry, Owen. For what it's worth, I always thought you were good for her. Grounded. Real. But Sharon and we pushed her to want more. More everything. We made her think that contentment was failure. It's not your fault, I said. She's an adult. She makes her own choices. Still, I'm sorry for my part in it. He put his hand on Sharon's shoulder. Come on, let's let him shop in peace. As they walked away, I heard Sharon say, I can't believe you took his side. I didn't take a side, Richard replied. I just told the truth. I finished my shopping in a daze. That conversation explained so much. The constant pushing, the never being satisfied, the emphasis on achievement over everything else. Melissa had learned it all. She'd been trained to see the world that way. But that still didn't make it my problem to fix. Thursday evening, I went back to the house with Rodney to get more of my things. Melissa wasn't there. Just as well. We loaded up 2 more boxes, some books, my tools from the garage. On the kitchen counter, I found another note. I love you. Please don't do this. We can work it out. I'll change. I crumpled it up and threw it away. Friday, the papers were served. Melissa called me 17 times. I didn't answer. By the following Tuesday, word had spread through the neighborhood. I got 3 text messages from neighbors expressing support. Frank Donnelly invited me to poker night. Patricia dropped off a casserole at Rodney's apartment. Kyle Hampton sent a message. What you did took guts. Respect. Even Preston Walsh reached out. Hey man, wanted to apologize. We should have said something on Saturday. What Melissa said was out of line. I appreciated the messages, but I didn't need validation anymore. I'd made my choice. I was sticking with it. The following Saturday, Brian invited me to his place. Having a few people over for the afternoon. Nothing fancy. Just thought you might want to get out. I almost said no. Too soon to be social. But Rodney encouraged me. You can't hide forever, man. Might as well face the neighborhood eventually. So I went. It was smaller than our Memorial Day disaster. Maybe 15 people. Angela Torres was there with her daughter. The Donnellys. Kyle. A few others I recognized from the neighborhood. Owen. Brian clapped me on the shoulder. Glad you came. Grab a beer. I did. Angela approached with a plate of food. You doing okay? Getting there. Good. You deserve better than what happened. Her daughter ran up, showing me a drawing she'd made. I admired it, asked her about school, treated her like a person. When she ran off to play, Angela smiled at me. You're good with kids. They're easy. They say what they mean. She laughed. Fair point. We talked for a while. Nothing heavy. Just easy conversation. She worked in education. Her daughter was 7, loved reading, wanted to be a veterinarian. We discovered we'd both read the same book recently and spent 10 minutes discussing it. It felt normal. Easy. Like talking to an actual person who saw me as an actual person. Later, Brian found me by the grill. You and Angela seem to be hitting it off. She's nice. She's been asking about you for years. Melissa used to glare daggers at her whenever she talked to you at neighborhood things. I never noticed. You weren't supposed to. That's how controlling works. Make you doubt your own perception. I thought about that. About all the times Melissa had steered me away from conversations or made cutting remarks about neighbors afterward. About how isolated I'd felt without realizing I was being isolated. You did the right thing, Brian said. Walking away doesn't always feel like it. Give it time. It will. The weekend after that, I finally went back to the house to get the last of my things. Melissa was there this time. She looked terrible. Hair unwashed, eyes red, wearing the same clothes I'd seen her in days ago. Can we talk? She asked. There's nothing left to say. Please. I've been thinking a lot. About us. About what I said. About everything. I started loading boxes into my truck. She followed me back and forth. I was wrong. I see that now. I took you for granted. I didn't appreciate what I had. You're right. You didn't. So let me fix it. Let me show you I can change. I stopped and looked at her. Here's the thing, Melissa. You probably can change. Maybe you'll become a better person. Maybe you'll learn to appreciate whoever comes next. But I'm not interested in waiting around to find out. Why not? Because love doesn't require a public humiliation to wake it up. Love doesn't need a list to remember why it exists. Love knows what book I'm reading and what movie I've watched 20 times. She didn't have an answer for that. I finished loading the truck. Rodney helped me carry out the last few boxes. Where will I go? Melissa asked. You have family, friends. Figure it out. This is my home. No, I said. It's mine. And I'm giving you until the end of the week to find somewhere else. She looked like I'd slapped her. You're really going to throw me out? I'm giving you more consideration than you showed me at that barbecue. 5 days. That's generous, considering. I got in the truck. Rodney climbed in the passenger side. Through the rearview mirror, I watched Melissa standing in the driveway, getting smaller as we drove away. You good? Rodney asked. Yeah, I am. And I was. Thursday morning, I met Frank Donnelly for coffee at a place on South Congress. He'd sent me a text the night before. Buy you a cup of coffee if you're free. No pressure. Frank was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 steaming mugs. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down. Thanks for the invite. He pushed one mug toward me. Black, right? I remember from the barbecue. Good memory. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Frank was maybe 65, retired from teaching, married to Patricia for almost 40 years. Good people. The kind of neighbors who brought you soup when you were sick and didn't ask for anything in return. Patricia wanted to come, Frank said. But I thought this might be easier man to man. Appreciate it. I went through something similar. Long time ago, before I met Patricia, I was married to a woman named Carol for about 5 years. Smart, beautiful, ambitious. Everything I thought I wanted. He took a sip of coffee. She had this way of making me feel small. Not overtly. Just little comments here and there. How I dressed. How I talked. My career choices. At first, I thought she was trying to help me improve. Then I realized she was trying to make me into someone else entirely. What happened? I stayed too long. Kept thinking if I just changed enough, did enough, became enough, she'd finally be satisfied. Then one day at a faculty party, she introduced me to a colleague as Frank, the one who peaked in his 20s. I winced. Yeah, that's when I knew. When someone tells you who they think you are in front of witnesses, believe them. I filed for divorce the next week. Do you regret it? Only that I didn't do it sooner. Wasted 5 years trying to be someone I wasn't. Someone I could never be, because the problem wasn't me. It was her expectations. Did she try to get you back? Oh yeah. Tears. Promises. The whole routine. She even showed up at my apartment at 2 in the morning with a list of all my good qualities. But when I read the list, it was all surface stuff. You're employed. You're not ugly. You don't cheat. Nothing about who I actually was as a person. Melissa did the same thing. Made a list. Every item was something I did, not something I was. Frank nodded. That's how you know it's over. When someone can list your functions, but not your character. When they see you as a role, not a person. Did Carol ever understand? No. Last I heard, she's on her 3rd marriage. Still looking for someone who can be molded into her perfect vision. Still disappointed every time. I met Melissa's parents at the grocery store today. Her mother essentially said the same things Melissa says. About ambition and drive and achievement. Family patterns, Frank said. We inherit more than we realize. Not just physical traits, but attitudes, values, ways of seeing the world. Melissa probably doesn't even realize she's repeating what she learned growing up. That doesn't excuse it. No, it doesn't. But it might help you understand it wasn't personal. She would have done this to anyone who didn't fit her inherited definition of success. We finished our coffee. Frank paid the bill despite my protests. As we stood to leave, he put his hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing. Walking away takes more courage than staying. And you've got a lot of good years ahead of you. Don't waste them on someone who can't see your value. Thanks, Frank. That means a lot. Anytime. And hey, Patricia wanted me to tell you we're having a quiet dinner party next Saturday. Nothing fancy, just a few friends. You're welcome to join. I might take you up on that. Driving back to Rodney's place, I thought about what Frank had said, about family patterns and inherited attitudes, about lists of functions versus lists of character. It helped, somehow, made it less about me specifically and more about incompatible worldviews. Melissa saw people as projects. I saw them as people. Those perspectives would never reconcile. 6 weeks later, 4th of July weekend arrived. Brian invited me to his place for a barbecue. Nothing crazy, just the usual suspects. I showed up early to help set up. Angela was already there with her daughter. The Donnellys arrived with a dish to share. Carl brought beer. Preston and Bethany came, though they seemed different somehow, less performative. As the sun set, we watched fireworks from Zilker Park in the distance. Angela stood next to me, her daughter on her other side. How are you really doing? She asked. Better than I've been in years. Good. She smiled. You deserve that. Bethany Walsh approached us with drinks. Owen, I wanted to say something. Watching you walk away when Melissa said that stuff, it made Preston and me really think about our own marriage. Yeah, Preston added, joining us. We've been in couples therapy for a month now, trying to actually communicate instead of just competing all the time. That's great, I said. You inspired it, Bethany said. Watching someone actually have the guts to demand respect instead of just taking whatever gets thrown at them. We needed to see that. After they walked away, Angela nudged me. You're like the neighborhood hero now. Hardly. I just got tired of being a doormat. That's exactly why you're a hero. Most people never get tired of it. Brian joined us, carrying a plate of watermelon. Heard from Melissa last week. Oh, she moved to Houston, living with her sister. Apparently posting a lot on social media about new beginnings and knowing your worth. Angela snorted. The irony. I hope she figures it out, I said. And I meant it. I didn't wish her harm. I just didn't want to be part of her journey anymore. As the fireworks exploded overhead, Angela's daughter pointed at the sky, excited. Angela put her arm around her daughter, then glanced at me and smiled. For the first time in years, I felt something that had been missing. Not just the absence of criticism. Not just peace, but actual possibility. The sense that tomorrow might be better than today. That I might be valued instead of tolerated. You know what the funny thing is? Brian said, Melissa called you a roommate like it was an insult. Yeah, but you're the best neighbor I've ever had. You helped me move furniture when my back was out. You organize the block watch. You water everyone's plants when they travel. Being a good roommate, good neighbor, good person, those aren't insults. She was criticizing me for being kind and reliable. Exactly, which says more about her than you. Angela leaned closer. For what it's worth, I've thought you were amazing since the day you helped me carry groceries up my stairs when I had a broken arm. That was 3 years ago. You didn't even hesitate. I remembered that day. Remembered Melissa making a comment later about me being too helpful to the neighbors. Thank you, I said. The fireworks continued. The party went on. And for the first time since I'd married Melissa, I wasn't worried about what someone would say about me. Wasn't bracing for the next cut or joke or casual dismissal. I was just there. Present. Real. Myself. And that was enough. Dear listeners, that's our ending. If it resonated, subscribe to support the channel. See you next time.